Hey, I'm Sara Gonzales. Welcome to the news and why it matters. Glenn, what was the top story for you?
The Kardashian and their firefighting squad.
This is probably the first time you've ever said the Kardashians are your top story.
Yes, and hopefully my last.
Stu.
How do I pick a story with someone less relevant than the Kardashians? Michael Avenatti.
All right. I already feel like this is going to be a heck of a show. Andrew.
I am going to talk about the hatred in the American heart. There's some
I was right.
statistics that are disturbing coming out.
Awesome. All right. Before we get into all of that.
Puzzling guy. You are really, truly one of my favorite individuals that I think I have met in a very long time.
Well, thank you, Glenn.
But it's really more of a statement, I don't get out enough.
Before we get into all of that, I want to thank our sponsor, Brick House. So I have not been sleeping well lately. I don't know if it's a weather change or what, but I'm kind of living off of From Dawn to Dusk right now, their product that gives you energy without the jittery feelings of coffee. But they also have Field of Greens, which is much tastier than what you will find on this table. It is one
Much
full
more tasty
serving.
than anything that you will find that is the color green, and with an exception of possibly an apple sometimes.
What about pistachio ice cream? Yeah.
No.
Mint chocolate chip.
mint
chocolate
yes,
chip.
I'll
Lime
take
sherbet.
that.
Lime sherbet ice cream.
I'll take that. Lime sherbet is not an ice cream. It's either one or the other.
I got science right
Okay,
there.
but instead of eating
Science
ice cream,
denier.
you need Field of Greens. One scoop is one full serving of fruits and vegetables, and they're organic. It tastes great. You can mix it in water, milk, a smoothie, whatever you'd like. And men, you can get your wives off your back for not eating your vegetables.
Yes,
it's
finally.
a win-win.
Right, the old ball and chain.
Go to brickhouseblaze.com and use promo code GREENS for 15% off your first order, or you can text the word GREENS to 41411.
All right, I'm going to tell you now a horrifying story. Horrifying story.
Okay.
Of how the rich just get richer and keep the poor down. The Kardashians have taken firefighters off of the front lines and hired them to keep their house, from burning. Except the problem is that they didn't take any firefighters from the front line on the cheap houses. They just hired private people, brought them in, and fought the fire. They're on a side of a hill. They had all these firemen come and just continually spray the hill and spray their house, which stopped the fire from going to their house and burning down the entire street. Now, they have a $60 million house. And I am reading about this, and I am hearing about how horrible this is. Oh, now the rich can fight fires. Yes, they can. Yes, they can. You can too, but you probably don't have the money to hire a bunch of firefighters. But here's where you should look at it. Everybody's insurance is going to go up because of this damn wildfire, okay? How much? Have you even heard? I mean, I'm not hearing things. Usually you hear the stats on what this is going to cost. What is this going to cost the insurance companies, and how high are the premiums going to be?
Especially with the neighborhoods that the
Exactly
fires are
right.
located in.
So any $60 million house filled with a bunch of crap that's also probably at least $40 million in shoes, I say save it, because it will help your insurance rate. How can this possibly be America when we still have volunteer fire departments? This guy hires a bunch of people. It's not illegal for you to do it. He has the money. He saved hundreds of millions of dollars. How is this a bad thing? I don't get it.
It's kind of like if you got mad about bodyguards or mall cops, right? Like, we've got policemen, and no one's saying you shouldn't have access to policemen or you shouldn't have access to firefighters, but if you want to augment that through the private sector, you're free to. And, no one says that mall cops are detracting from, the ability of other people to get police effort.
And nobody's saying that the security guards.
Right.
However, if all of a sudden you had a security guard and a bulletproof car, and your neighbors didn't, and they were being shot up by gangs, and you got out, they would turn on you and say, how dare you, look at the rich, he got out. Yeah, because he hired a bodyguard, and he bought the car, and he had a plan for it.
And this is everything that happens in every market, right? I mean, you get the best TVs first when you're rich, and you get the best car first when you're rich. You get all the new technology first. But like a lot of the way they're fighting these fires in these rich areas is with new technology that's not really tested, and it's super expensive and nobody can afford it. But that's just the case now. In 15 and 20 years, every fire department will have this proven technology that was paid for largely by people like the Kardashians. And that's a miracle. I mean, this is honestly a story of heroism from Kim Kardashian and Kanye West. Because here's they were able to bring in the private sector to solve a real problem at their own expense. They saved other people's homes as well. They saved everybody when it comes to insurance cost. This should not be, in America at least, this should not be looked upon negatively.
So here's the thing. To show what you're talking about, I have a home in the mountains, and it is so close to burning down. And so we've talked about installing this new fire suppression system. I don't even know what it is, but it's like these valves that when it senses fire, it actually coats the entire house in foam. Okay?
So if I come to your ranch and smoke, that is a
You will
long
be
weekend.
spending a lot of time.
Bring a bucket.
Yeah, bring a bucket and a rag.
Yeah.
But it coats it in this foam. It's absolutely incredible. Well, yes, I bought you remember on my 40th birthday, my wife, she got me a Sony Trinitron high definition 40-inch screen. It was the first one hanging on the wall. That was my 40th birthday. It was $10,000, okay? $10,000. A 40-inch high definition, not 2K, not 4K, not 8K, which they now just came out with. It was just high definition. 10 grand.
Was it one of the ones with the really big backs too? Like the big chunky back?
No,
okay,
it
so
was
it
the
was
first
slim.
flat. It was the first
slim. Okay.
flat screen that you could hang on the wall.
But you could go to
40
Walmart
inches.
in the next 10 minutes and buy that exact TV, except far improved with much better technology for $260.
Right. It's the same thing. Right now, what people have to understand is you look at the breakers if you ever go to Newport and you see, oh my gosh, the Vanderbilts. Look at the way they lived. Really? Look at the way they lived? You have more amenities in the middle class home making 60 grand a year. You have more amenities and more access to more different kinds of food that you can afford. Different kinds of food, different kinds of transportation, all of it.
I won't even time travel backwards. Right. I don't want to live any time without air conditioning.
Right. You're better off than the Vanderbilts were.
Yeah. I mean, one of my favorite books is The Rational Optimist.
Oh, by Matt Ridley?
So good.
Lord Matt Ridley is a great author, great guy.
And in the book, he talks about but go back to the kings in the day. And what they would do with the kings is they would come out to their dinner and they would cover a gigantic table with every single food they could possibly imagine. And they would walk out there and they would be able to choose anything they wanted. That's just us going to the grocery store now. Every single person on earth has the same thing that King Louis had.
And what is the average number of items on a grocery store of different variety? It's like
it's much better now, right?
It's tens of thousands of variety, where that was just on one table.
An absolute miracle, and we never recognize it.
It just seems so contrary to the principles that our country was founded on, that we're now, it's supposed to be a negative that someone has money and can afford to do things. I feel like used to, that was looked at as like motivation to work hard and become that rich.
So I remember when Bill Gates first built his house in Seattle. Anybody remember that? It was like...
Oh, it was like the computer house and everything.
Yeah,
it was really big deal at the time. Yeah.
Do you remember what the big thing was? One of the big things that he had in his house was he had flat screens, and they doubled as pictures. And so you could take a picture, a painting, and it would be on a flat screen monitor on his wall.
Wow.
That's crazy. And it could change pictures.
But did he have one of those paintings that has the neon strip going through it? Because I feel like that's super classic.
The 90s, maybe.
Right,
So,
okay.
Yeah. To go back to your point, Sarah, I think that there's a very common and very destructive conflation of poverty and inequality as being the same thing. Poverty's bad. Poverty is always bad. We should always be trying to figure out how to break up poverty. But the idea that someone's poor because someone's rich is very harmful.
Yes.
Because if I go build a house and I pay someone to build a house, That value has been created. That guy got the salary, and I got a house. We don't live in a zero-sum universe.
Right.
And it's the same thing with the firefighters in this equation, where if it were Kim Kardashian bribing the fire department to go away from low-income housing so it could burn to the ground, that would be a different story. But hiring other people to come in, all you're doing is expanding the pie of available firefighters, and it benefits everybody.
So I was in Pittsburgh a couple of weeks ago. We were on tour. And we were at this community theater, and it was built in 1890 something or other by Carnegie. And it was fascinating. I mean, I had the best time. We were in the basement looking at the old the coal furnaces and stuff. It was a time tunnel, but it was connected to a library. And so I started doing some research on this place because it was just phenomenal. And it was built by Mr. Carnegie, who, remember, is a robber baron. Yeah. And he built this library, and the music hall, kind of like he did in New York City. And he said that he wanted every community to have a king's library, the library of a king, okay? Because it would provide a ladder for those in the regular population. If they were motivated to do so, they could get the information and educate themselves and climb out for those who were motivated. Okay? He didn't say for everybody. He said for those who were motivated. So I read this and I thought, how is this guy a robber baron? And I keep reading. And do you remember the number? It was in the thousands. I thought it was like 28,000 or something.
I don't.
He didn't just build that library. He built 28,000 libraries all around America. And this was a robber baron?
He also refused knighthood. He was offered knighthood by the Queen of England because he's from Scotland, and he refused it because he thought he was against the idea of monarchs and unearned success and that kind of thing. And then Rockefeller, who was a contemporary of his, who was also a robber baron, but Rockefeller got rich basically making it possible for poor people to read at night. Because he was telling you that's what a Standard Oil is. A Standard Oil is a unit of oil. He took oil instead of whale blubber, which is what people were using. People were literally killing whales. He figured out a way to take petroleum and make that cheap and accessible to regular middle-class families so they could read. And he got wealthy off of that, making the world better and saving whales. And he's treated as this, this evil person because he's very wealthy.
He actually was, though, not the first one. Was it the first one? I can't remember. The old guy in the 40s that built Rockefeller Center, which one was that?
I'm not sure.
I think that was senior. I don't remember which one it was. He was not all that good.
Okay.
I'd like to continue to spend time not getting to Michael Avenatti, but
okay, all right, sorry about that.
Oh, do I have to?
I mean, you brought it up.
I did. I think it's interesting just from the perspective of, obviously he had this incident where he apparently, was accused of going and assaulting a woman, and I think it's a notable from the fact that here's a guy who has been made baseless accusations against numerous people that he disagrees with, and
Karma.
What?
Nothing. Sorry.
Cough.
Karma.
Okay.
Sorry.
Numerous accusations, and never gave anyone the benefit of the doubt of due process. And yet, I think it's a great place that we live in, and the fact that he will get it. He will get his due process. Certainly, people, and I don't know that I've seen one exception on the right or libertarian circles that has said, you know what, no, he didn't give due process to Brett Kavanaugh, and so we shouldn't give it to him. Everyone is saying, you know what, I hope he learns a lesson here about the way this is supposed to.
As we talked about today on the radio show on this, he's not going to.
He's not going to.
And neither will the left.
No,
they will not learn that lesson.
Yeah, and I think
that's so frustrating because we are being true to what we believe in.
And this is the thing, we've talked about this many times with the way that we handle these situations, right? I get a lot of people in the audience who are like, you guys keep saying be the better person and eventually it'll come around. And people get frustrated because with things like this, Michael Avenatti is not going to learn his lesson, and no one's going to say, hey, you guys, I'm glad you were principled with both Kavanaugh and Avenatti. You said the same thing. No one cares. It's frustrating. And on the other side, CNN and MSNBC and so many of these networks put this guy on television over and over and over and over and over again with no information of whether what he was saying was accurate. They just knew that in the end they wanted to stop, whether it was Donald Trump or whether it was Brett Kavanaugh. They kept throwing the guy on the air with almost no interest whether what he was saying was true or not. And are they going to learn their lesson? Is there any soul searching that goes on at a cable news network?
Nope.
When they say, like, this guy, wow, he really seems like a fraud.
Wait, hang on. When you say soul searching, you mean like, hey, where did all our souls
Where are they?
Where did they go?
We've lost them.
We've lost
and need
them.
to find them.
Because that may go on.
Do you think this is going to hurt his chances for the Democratic nomination?
Oh,
No.
I actually,
I'm printing up T-shirts.
what really hurt his chances, I don't think it's this, because, I mean, look, we've seen people, Menendez has had all sorts of shady stuff. He's still in the Senate. What's his face in Minnesota? Keith Ellison still won. There's not a lot that can derail you if they like you. They think the issue that hurts him is Kavanaugh. He hurt that process. He hurt them shutting that down in the end. He was so...
He still might face it. Or has he been indicted properly on that? Because I think he's been charged with things by the judiciary for potentially...
All we have to do is just change the spelling of his name, and it works. Just, N-A-U-G-H-T-Y. Avenatti. I'm a little naughty.
That's his porn name. Oh, my God.
His porn name.
That's it. Michael Avenatti.
Okay.
That's kind of
I think I did the same.
We got to take a break.
Let's keep talking about Michael Avenatti and porn. We have plenty of time. We don't need to go to... Why are you breaking? I don't understand.
Partial lot cleaner.
All right, now that we're done with Avenatti, we...
Say it right.
Avenatti.
No, I'm not going to say that.
should say it like that.
I'm not going to say that. Now that we're done with that, we've got a lot more to get into. But before we do that, want to thank our sponsor, My Patriot Supply. My Patriot Supply, we're just talking about all of these wildfires going on in California. What did you say the other day, Glenn? It was burning like 80 football fields.
80 football fields every 60 seconds.
Every 60 seconds.
It is.
That's insane.
Yeah, talking to people who are living out there or part of this, it's jumping over freeways. You will see the smoke and the fire. It may be too late for you to get out. If you're trapped in one of these canyons, there's no place to go.
Yeah.
People are, it's horrible. But on the other side of the fire, you have to think, how am I going to feed my family for the next, I don't even know how many weeks.
You jump in the car. You don't know where you're going to go.
You have no place you're staying at a hotel along with 40,000 other people?
Right.
I mean, what is that costing people? It's horrible. Anyway, but if you have My Patriot Supply, no matter what it is, they come in these these tubs or these grab and go totes, and you just grab them and they're slim and you throw them in the back of the car and you're gone, and you have food, breakfast, lunch, and dinner for your family for 3 weeks. Yeah. That's tremendous.
Everyone needs a couple weeks of emergency food supply. You can go now to preparewithnews.com. Get your 2-week emergency food supply. That is breakfast, lunch, and dinner for $75. It's worth it. $75 for 2 weeks of food.
It's actually good, too.
Yeah. And I mean, that's for those just-in-case moments when you least expect it. So that's preparewithnews.com. Andrew, everyone hates each other?
Yes. So I was reading a story today, and it disturbed me because I was kind of hoping that we would the midterms would represent the fever pitch of tribal hatred and partisanship, and then we'd kind of go back down again, and
like
we'd talk about movies and things, and then maybe Ruth Bader Ginsburg and I would pop up again, but if she didn't, we'd be okay till 2020.
The zenith of hatred and division is 2025. Historically speaking, 2025.
Really?
Yeah.
Based
on
the
pendulum theory. It's a theory that it's really well done. It's also based on the Kondrackian wave.
That's kind of the collective versus individual thing. Yeah.
And so we hit the 80-year zenith of collectivism at 2025. Then it's another 40 years back to the center.
Oh my gosh.
So it's going to be, it's a long.
How we survive
if I'm an independent who doesn't like tribes, am I just out of luck for the next 30 years?
I keep believing, because remember, this started in, I think, 1920, and its zenith was in the 40s, the last zenith we had, which, look at the world, but it hit its peak at about 1940, 42 or something like that, and that's when the war was just raging. And then as soon as the war stopped and burned that infection out, it went back quickly to, hey, we all love each other, and let's not be that way anymore.
Yeah, I mean, post-war, like Eisenhower and everything, there was like a much greater, and there was also still the threat of communism.
Right, but it was still we're in this together.
Yeah.
It was just that we're in this together for the right things.
And that's the data that I've been reading that I find very disturbing, is that there have been several different studies that have come out. There was I don't know the methodology on this, but there was a survey that came out on SurveyMonkey. They were talking about it on Axios, where the percentage of Republicans and Democrats that view the other team with fear or believe they're either
evil.
Ignorant or evil.
Yeah.
That's increased. And the one that really disturbed me was a study out of North Carolina by I think it's Wheeler and Hetherington, who have been tracking, just in polling data, whether or not you hate who you're voting against. And that's been increasing steadily since the year 2000. In the year 2000, when the data was available, about 20% of Republicans and Democrats hated the other team, and now it's up to like 50% or so.
Like, it's such a strong word to say. I mean, hate. I can't say that.
Yeah,
right?
we probably all have people we disagree with that we like, but it's becoming more polarized. I've been reading through Ben Sass's book. I really enjoy it, and he talks about anti-tribes. That we're not really in tribes anymore. We're in anti-tribes, united against who we hate. And I do think we can fight it. Yeah. I think we can try and push through this and remember the humanity and the rest of our countrymen. But it's going to take some effort. I don't think it's where the winds are going right now.
It's interesting because I'm reading a book. For the life of me, I can't remember what it is now, but it's on tribes, and it's based on some of the research. Remember that we talked about in the 90s about how the country was going to break up, how Russia said America would break up into, I think, 8 different tribes or
6 or 8.
6 or 8. He says that's absolutely accurate, and he is taking you through each separate tribe. He said we are really just a collection of groups of people that look at the world very, very differently. And, we all kind of live in these certain areas. And the problem is that our unum used to be, hey, you do what you want, I'll do what I want. Don't mess with me. What's right for you in San Francisco is not right for me in Texas. But now the government's so big, and it's saying what's right for Texas is right for San Francisco and right for New York and Peoria, Illinois. That's not true. And that's what's causing this tension.
There's a cultural corollary to that as well, where if your worldview is I live on Earth and Washington, D.C. is just kind of the moon orbiting where I live, then it's not as big of a deal who's in Washington. But if Washington's the sun and we're all just revolving around that, then it becomes all important that you're controlling that. And I think we've kind of had this shift away from, well, like, I'm more invested in my personal neighborhood. I know my neighbors. I'm in the local Rotary Club and the Elks Lodge. And as those organizations start to atrophy, we become more and more concerned with being part of the really big tribe. And then that's winner takes all, and there's not a lot of ground for that.
And let's remember that the sun always turns into a black hole and crushes all life in the end.
Oh.
Vote Moon.
We're going to leave this segment on a really positive note. Back in a minute.
You're all about to be crushed. That's basically
You're all about to be crushed. We are all being sucked into the Washington's gravity.
Glenn, did you find anyone to win the M1 raffle? It didn't go as planned.
I blame Andrew.
I made up all the
planned.
names. I just said names that I thought were funny, and I wrote random numbers down, and
So we were doing
calling me out.
We're giving away this Mercedes for Mercury One, and you could win it through a raffle. It's how we raise money to help people. Oh my gosh, the rich are getting richer. So yesterday I said, well, you know what we're going to do? We're going to have a mini raffle. Anybody who buys a ticket yesterday, we're going to draw your name. Well, we drew names, and the first two were like, first one I thought hated us. And was like, We're like, hey, did you buy a raffle ticket? Yes. Well, this is Glenn Beck. Yes. We're like, oh my gosh. But she was actually a big fan, but she was going to Hawaii, so she couldn't come. The next one, she just picks up the phone laughing, and she's like, yeah, I can't go either.
I just heard the other person talking about how they couldn't go.
Yeah, I can't go either. So I don't know. I haven't checked, but I know we're going to find somebody. But today, if you buy a raffle ticket, you can come. We'll fly you out to the studios in February. You're going to spend the weekend with us. It's going to be a lot of fun. Do that now, mercury1.org/M1ball.
And we will see you guys. There's more to come in overtime.